Just me today, Karen the maths mum, no children, they're all at school. Today I'm going to talk about memory and maths. We're going to talk about 3 different types of memory. We're going to talk about our long-term memory, our short-term memory, and our working memory. I'll start by explaining what they are. First, our long-term memory is about remembering things in the past. Our ability to remember a place that we've been to, visited when we were younger, a memory of how to do something. So for instance, in our long-term memory is if you can drive, how to drive a car. You don't think about it anymore, it's in your long-term memory. Short-term memory, I used to think short-term memory was remembering what I did this morning in the evening, but indeed short-term memory is much smaller than that. And this is something that my child Lance with Down syndrome, I've got to understand more. Short-term memory can mean as short as remembering the first syllable of the word after you've heard the second syllable. And it's something with children with special needs we've understood can be quite a challenge. And what does that mean? For us, it's remembering what people said in the context of a sentence. Okay, so short-term memory is the ability to remember what just happened, what was just said, what did you just see. Okay, the last memory is working memory. Working memory is our capacity in our brain to hold information while we do something else and then recall that information. So it's I am working on it at the moment. I am remembering that, to do this. So this can be things for a mum, which is, working memory, is in the morning trying to get the kids out to school, remembering the water bottle, the bag, the coat, the this, the form for that. It's about remembering everything there in the moment and how, much capacity you have for that. So why does memory play a massive part of maths? Firstly, long-term memory. Why is long-term memory important for maths? Well, that is why we rote learn and we remember things like the times tables. We remember them and we repeat them in order for them to be logged in our long-term memory. So at some point or other, we don't need to work out what 7 6s are. We go 7 6s and 42 pops into our head because we've put it in our long-term memory and it becomes then recall. So the reason we rote learn things is to move things from having to work out and use your working memory into our long-term memory bank so we recall it. Why is that important? Well, it creates space in your head for working things out. Okay, so the reason that it is important to put things in the long-term memory bank and use recall is it gives us a little bit more space in our head. Okay. Short-term memory, why is that important in maths? So when we talk about short-term memory, it's about saying, I'll read you 4 digits and I ask you to read them back to me immediately. It's about immediate recall of information I've just given you. So if I say 4 6 7 3, you repeat 4 6 7 3 back to me. And how good your short-term memory is how many digits you can remember and recall and count back that somebody else has given you. Most of us are around the 4 mark. Some people will maybe go to 6 or 7. You'll know yourself when somebody gives you a telephone number, when do you go stop and you want the sequence. So for me it's 3, I always do my phone number as 3 digits, 3 digits, 3 digits because I appreciate that my short-term memory deals with 3 at a time. Okay, working memory. Working memory is how much you can do in your head without forgetting. And why is this really important in maths? Well, when you're doing sums like carrying and adding up and some of the harder ones, you have to retain a piece of information in your head. Even when it comes to questions, you have to maybe remember your working memory that you were being asked to count up the blue cars at the start of the question when something else was put into the question at the end. Working memory, you can test by me giving you a 4-digit number, 3782, and I ask you to repeat it back to me in reverse order. You have to remember the number, you have to do a translation, put it backwards, and then you have to read it back. Our children and ourselves have different capacities when it comes to memory. Okay, I've got quite a good long-term memory and I can remember things way back from when I was 2. But I do know that my short-term and working memory are challenged. So therefore I tend to work in shorter amounts of information and I use my pen and pencil more often. So the reason that memory is important in understanding how our children do maths and how good their memories are is it will enable you to help them. For instance, times tables. We love to learn times tables. Teachers have it in their head that you need to, learn your times tables. It might be impossible because somebody might not have a good enough long-term memory to retain all of them. So then what you do is you will actually assemble ones that are important to remember. And then you will work out ways in which to use your working memory to deduce the rest. So for instance, if I remember my 6 times tables, but I have difficulty remembering my 12 times tables, one way in which I can deal with that is I can use my 6 times tables and double them to get 12. Okay, so if I know 6 times 6 is 36, and I know how to double things because I've done that in mental maths, then one of the things I can do is, okay, so 12 times 6 is double 36 and double 36 is 72. I've got my answer, but I haven't done 6 12s or 12 sixes. So it's about understanding how our memory works, helps us to understand how we do maths more effectively. If you have a bad working memory, i.e. you can't hold information and then go back to it, you need to use pen and paper more often. If you've got a bad short-term memory, it is important that you read the question, underline the relevant bits. If a teacher is talking to a child who's got a bad short-term memory, chances are they won't remember the first part of the sentence when they're dealing with the second set. And that can also, if you're copying from a board down to your piece of paper, can affect what you do. So you might look and read, and then look down and forget the information. That is what bad short-term memory is. So if you identify that your child has got a bad short-term memory, look at ways in which you can help. So copy the question down for them. Underline the relevant pieces of information. One of the things I've learned from my son is testing short-term memory is very simple. If you ask a child to go to the door and get your shoes and your coat, and if they come back with their coat, chances are they may have a problem with the short-term memory. What they've heard is go to the door and get your coat, but they've missed out the middle bit because when they remember door and coat, they forgot the other bit. So asking children to do instructions, seeing how they follow them, seeing what they do, is a very good insight into short-term memory. If you want to know any more information about this, please contact me directly. If you've got any concerns about your children and you want to have a private conversation with me, please do get in contact. I'm the Maths Mum. You can get me at the Maths Mum or on my email, which is contact@themathsmum.co.uk.